Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows or adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Arrow. So obviously, in this season finale, we dealt mainly with the whole, dark situation coming to an end. I will admit, it was pretty cool seeing, even more of his powers, like seeing like when Oliver fired that arrow towards him and he stopped and it exploded and the explosion was caught midair. That looked pretty badass. I was a little worried for Felicity's mom, just the fact that, which kind of looked pretty cool too. I mean, it was a little scary, obviously, it being Felicity's mom, but it was kind of neat seeing like how he just like yanked her across the room like that. That was pretty. I mean, I felt kind of bad for Curtis getting knocked around like that, but it was just like, it was one of those moments where it's just like Dark was so powerful, when the realization came across, it's like even with like the hope he got from Felicity, it still wasn't enough to counter Dark's magic. And just because he had grown so powerful, which Lila did that stupid thing where she sent all those Argus agents there. It's like, he's stupid powerful with magic. And it's like, you sent more people to get killed by him just so he could fuel his magic even more. Oliver's like, you shouldn't do that. She's like, it's my decision. It's like, it's a stupid decision. But once again, like you said, it is your decision. So I thought that was a little, like, I feel like you should think about that a little bit more. And which also in this episode, we dealt with the fact is that, Diggle actually finally told Lila the truth about the whole Andy situation, because there was a moment he actually froze in battle, like when those ghosts invaded their hideout and trashed the place, really trashed it, and he froze at one moment because like he was putting a gun at one of them, and he just instantly thought of Andy. It had to be Lila to put that ghost down, but it was just like because. Previously, Lila talked about like, oh, I see what's wrong. You're a little, shaken up and you're just kind of without hope. Because she's like, usually you're the one that kind of fills me with hope. Because everyone's just like hopeless in a situation. The missiles are going off. They're going to strike everywhere in like 2 hours. And they just don't, it's basically going to be the end of the world. Which, I mean, it came up in question. It's just like, why would Dark do this? He still has a daughter, doesn't he? It's like, truth be told, is Dark, it's like heartbroken. He just lost the woman he loves, and he's just mad. He wants everything to burn. I mean, he even rationalized it later on, being like, he'd rather kill his daughter in this situation so that, in some afterlife, because she's like, I miss mommy, and he's like, I miss her too, we'll be together soon. So it's like, in some afterlife, they'll be together, and he'd rather her die than have to grow up with the pain of living without her mom in her life. And it's just like, he even brings up Oliver. He's like, all that you've lost, all the pain that you've acquired over your life, it's like, me killing you would be a mercy, essentially. And that's kind of why he's doing all this, because over the millennia, the world has just turned into a disgusting, festering place that just needs to be wiped clean. That's what this whole Genesis thing was about. So it's just like, in him, I mean, it's a little, like I said, it's in a sick way, it's out of passion that he does what he does. It's like because he's so heartbroken over losing his wife that he's fine with him and his daughter not making it out of this alive. But it's just kind of like that's a little short-sighted of him. But it's like he's filled with anger. So it kind of makes sense to you because people don't act the most rational when they're just full of hatred and just sadness. So, but I thought it was just kind of interesting going back. The fact is that Lila was like, oh no, it was a good kill, that what you did to Andy, and that was weighing on Diggle, and he finally told her the truth, and she's like, no, it's okay, John, it's like, you're in the middle of war, but John was like, no, that doesn't excuse it. The fact of the matter is, if it was anyone else doing what he did, killing him in cold blood, yeah, it'd probably weigh on you a little bit, but not nearly as much as the fact is, it's your own brother you killed. And granted, yes, your brother said all these things, but it's like, the fact of the matter is, was it something he absolutely had to do? And like I brought that question up before when he actually did it. Did he have to do it? I don't know, because Andy couldn't be trusted. Andy would come after them, come after his own family too, just to get to Diggle and stuff like that. I mean, and I'm not just saying Diggle's family, I mean Andy's own family, his ex-wife, his child, just to get to John, just to like stop them in any way. He's like, I keep coming. So it's like, in that regard, just like, honestly, I don't know, like, if killing him was the wrong thing. I feel like killing him might have been the right thing in that regards, but then it's like, morally, it's like, the fact is, that's your brother, dude. Like, I mean, how do you ever come back from something like that? I don't think you can, like, but obviously they were able to, Curtis brought up something very interesting, that basically him and his husband fiance. Are they married? I forgot. I don't know if Curtis and his significant other are actually married or not. But essentially, they were going to leave Star City. They liked it there, but it's just like after everything that's going over, the big events in every season, the big thing that pretty much destroyed the city in seasons 1 through 3, it led them to go like, okay, we should leave. But it's because of the Green Arrow's message that made them decide to stay. It gave them hope. And like, Curtis was hopeless, but then Oliver was able to give him hope, and he went out and did that to the people, which I'm surprised that kind of worked the way it did, because it's like you're on a platform, you're just a guy out in the middle of the streets, and you're kind of yelling to people to kind of stop. I guess like in a situation like that, it was televised, obviously, but I guess it's like in that situation, you wouldn't be able to reach a large majority of people that way, because a lot of the people are out on the street rioting because, imminent death is on the horizon. So I guess that kind of makes sense. But I guess it's because of his status as a past mayor candidate that, people are like, that's Oliver Queen. We should listen to him. That's just something I'm nitpicking about. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. Like I say, because he did get it kind of came up later on in the episode, he did get 48% of the vote, even though he wasn't even on the ballot, because he kind of dropped out so that Dark's wife could, Reve could, run for mayor challenge. So yeah, even then he had 48% of the vote. So probably a lot of people are like, oh, that's Oliver Queen. I know who he is, and listen to him. And he was able to kind of calm the whole situation down, while Curtis and Felicity ended up averting the missile. But with everything that kind of happened, it finally led to a final showdown between Dark and Oliver, and with the entire town backing, the entire city backing him up, willing to take down Dark. Even Dark's magic was enough, but he's like, don't forget I was a part of the League of Assassins, which to me, I'm going like, yeah, but Oliver took your ass down before, when you didn't have magic, when they originally destroyed his idol. It's like, you kind of got taken down then, but it's like he put up more of a fight this time, and it led to a very interesting decision to basically kill Dark, because it came down to it where Dark was like, okay, you can't kill me. Like, you didn't even kill, Slade, the man who killed your own mother. So there's no way you're going to kill me. He's like, but there's a difference between you and Slade. For one, then I had a choice. Now you've killed not just Laurel, but you've killed tens of thousands of people. I can't let you live. It's like Slade did some damage, but it's like Dark's situation is like, you can't let someone with his powers go. I guess you could argue Slade is a little bit more manageable than Dark, who has the magic, who could kill people at any range. Obviously, he ended up killing that guy who is Felicity's ex-boyfriend, because basically put a bullet in his chest, and it was etching it closer, was it to his spine or his heart? And if Dark didn't feel like he was doing his proper job with the missiles, and because he backed down, because Felicity kind of talked to him, because like, what did we want to do all those years ago? And it's like, what did we want to do in college when we set out to do stuff? And they're like, oh, we set out to save the world. It's like, now we have that chance. And basically he was just, because he was a little selfish. I mean, it's like, I couldn't blame him. It's like, you're in a situation where it's like, yeah, either in the world or you die. But I mean, well, in that situation, it's kind of like, I'd rather die than be one of the reasons why the world comes to an end. But it's like, he's selfish. He's just like, I'd rather go out that way than be in pain, because, Darker's going to make this very painful for me. And he made it painful for him. Even that far away from him, he still was able to, kill him in that regard. So it's just like, his magic has a very long reach, so he's not someone that you can keep around. Granted, I am a little sad to see Dark die. I kind of wanted to keep that villain around, but it's just like, in that regard, it's just like, I don't know, it'd be nice to have seen him, in the future or not, but it's just, in that situation, I guess, he's not an opponent you really could set free. And something that never really came up in the episode is like, what happened to the idol after he died? I can only assume Argus took possession of it, because apparently that's what happened at the end. We finally saw the conclusion of what happened on the island in the flashbacks, and that was Ryder was finally dealt with, but then Tiana, which I thought, I was like, oh, I have her name, last time. It's like, I was so sure her name was Diana. It's not, it's Tiana. But she, didn't want to succumb to the power, so she asked Oliver to kill her. And he did. And then we actually saw, the graves of, the people, all the people he buried that were important to him on Lian Yu. And Argus took the idol away. And basically, Waller was like, I brought you here to this island not to kind of get rid of your darkness, to prove to you that sometimes you have to kill people to get the job done. To be a hero, sometimes it calls for you to kill somebody. And, you know, it's very, like, it ends with, well, I don't know whether to interpret the ending as saying, like, oh, like he's like, I still got a job to do, because she's like, oh, you can always go off and play vigilante. So I'm guessing, like, it makes you wonder, like, what's he going to do in this final year? Because this is, like, this next year is going to be the last year of the flashbacks. I mean, which some people would probably rather you go ahead and get rid of the flashbacks now, because some people don't really care for the flashbacks. Not since season 2. Season 2 was like the last ones they actually cared about. They're like, about 3, and some people are just like, forget 4. Personally, I'm like, I'm fine with it. I like the backstory, because it's like, I'm very interested in his entire experience with everything he's going through. Some people are like, oh, you're doing all this to set up the fact is that there's magic in the world. It's like, you did that when you introduced Dark, blah, 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 blah. Like I said, I'm quite interested to see what they do with it. I mean, they could totally end it and make it so it's like, oh, you think we're going to his 5th year? It's like, nope, we're actually going to, I don't know, like, actually fast forward. You know, in my mind, I'm kind of thinking like they could totally do a Lost, where Lost kind of did like a flash forward about, like, you know, when like Jack and them left the island and stuff like that. So it could be like a flash forward like that. Or it could be, you know, or it could be the 5th year. It's like, I'm very interested to see what, like, he went through. And especially because, like, when it's all said and done, like, I mean, multiple story elements were, you know, brought up. Like, for one, Team Arrow is somewhat in shambles, because pretty much everyone's going. Laurel's dead. Let's not forget, Sarah's still off time traveling. We have Thea kind of walking away, because basically she doesn't know who she is. I mean, you can't blame her. She's the girl that was brought back by the Lazarus Pit. She is Speedy / Red Arrow / being, you know, Oliver's sidekick, essentially. And she's also Merlin's daughter, which, like, what are they going to do with him? It's like, that guy is so flip-floppy. He's always choosing some other opposition. I mean, it's like, with the way things are now, it's like, he's obviously going to be in opposition with Oliver in this whole situation, because Oliver, you know, eventually is going to lead back to that, because what I mean by that is the fact is that Merlin lost the League of Assassins because of Oliver. So, you know, he's obviously going to still hold a grudge there, because, I mean, still that animosity between them. Like, the fact is that Oliver still, you know, on some level, obviously wants Merlin dead, but he can't do it because of Thea. But it's just like, what position will he stand in all of this? I mean, because, like, the way they have it set up, it obviously seems like Hive's going to be the next antagonist of season 5. But I mean, it's like, you never know, because, like, maybe there's going to be someone else kind of stepping up, that kind of something or someone that takes that place. So it'd be kind of interesting to see. I mean, like, the obvious route is to have Hive set up as the main antagonist, and, you know, Oliver and Team Arrow having to deal with that. I mean, kind of being kind of quote unquote broken as they are, because, I mean, like, you know, it's like, you know, because Thea's basically argument is like dealing with all that. She's also like, you know, it's like she went from being the girl brought back from the Lazarus Pit to being Speedy. Like, you know, she doesn't really know who she is in all this regard, so she has to kind of find herself. And then Diggle has to deal with the whole, like, the fact is I killed my brother, and like he has on his like military his medals and his uniform. So it's like, I don't know whether he's leaving Star City to kind of do something military related. I doubt it's anything Argus related, because he's saying goodbye to Lila too. So it makes you wonder what Diggle's going to do. I mean, it's like, he's going to have to find a way. I don't know, not necessarily this is something he can move past, but it's just, I don't know. Like, it's interesting to see what will happen. Like, you know, what Diggle will do to kind of deal with this whole situation. The fact is, he killed, like, his family. He killed his brother. You know, that's not something easy to come back from. So currently, the only ones left of Team Arrow are Oliver and Felicity. And that does make you wonder, will there be more Olicity from now on? Because it's like, you know, they still haven't really gotten back to the point where they could even be in a relationship together. They have repaired a relationship to a certain degree, but not to the point that they could be intimate and get back to where they were. I don't think that's going to be possible. Hopefully, they could get back to a relationship point, but it probably won't be like it was before. And I feel like, you know, because it's probably going to be like, you know, season 5 might start with them trying, like, not necessarily a new Team Arrow, because I doubt they're going to get rid of Thea and Diggle like that, because they're such an important part of the team. So I feel like, not, I doubt they're going to replace them, but it's just like, it's probably going to be like the beginnings. We're going to see like them struggling. It's just Oliver and Felicity handling things now, protecting Star City, probably getting help occasionally from Curtis, Mr. Terrific. It'd be kind of interesting to see him. Like, that's a character I'm not like, I Googled that character, but I'm still not familiar with him. But it'd be interesting to see him transform into that. So that might be something we might be looking forward to in the next season. But even then, it's probably just going to be like a big struggle for them because, because at the beginning, like Felicity was just almost like, yeah, Team Arrow because it's still, Team OG Arrow because it's her, Oliver, and Diggle. But Diggle has to walk away. So, but he's like, I wasn't expecting you to be here. She's like, I'm not like, you should know that I'm still a part of this. So, like I said, they got to kind of rebuild Team Arrow, and it's just like, where does that new Black Canary fit into all this too? I mean, I feel like she went through the trouble of disguising herself like the Black Canary, so obviously she's going to make some sort of reappearance. What I'm really curious to see is the fact is we have Oliver becoming the mayor. Obviously, it's temporary until they actually have an election, but it's like he already had a lot of the people's vote, so it's like that council member offers him the position. So it's very interesting because like Oliver's still struggling with that light and dark inside of him, and it's like something that he will never be able to escape, because it's like at the very beginning of this season, like Oliver was just so full of hope and everything because he thought like, oh, I can escape the darkness with them. But this season kind of brought it back to him, kind of brought him back down, that like he was being like, what's the word? I guess not really ignorant, just like foolhardy, I guess, to believe that, you can completely rid himself of that darkness. Like I've said it before, like everything that's happened to him on Lian Yu, that's never leaving him. It's something that's kind of ingrained itself in him, and that's something he's always going to have to live with. So, it's a, this whole new position he has is going to be a reflection of that, him battling the light and the darkness in him, trying to be the hope of the city during the day as the mayor, balancing his trying to be the hope of the city as its hero, the Green Lanterns. I mean, God, the Green Lantern, the Green Arrow. So it'd be kind of interesting to see to see how he handles that new dynamic, because that was something people had pointed out. They're like, oh, it'd be pretty interesting if he was mayor, to see him kind of balance that. We thought we were going to get that this season, but we ended up obviously we're getting it next season. So it'd be kind of interesting to see where it goes in that regard. And also, like, how will Arrow progress from now on, in the sense of like, oh, we've introduced magic into the world. So is the next season going to be a little bit more, even more magic orientated, or not? Or are they going to take a step back in that regard? I'm curious because, magic is a big part. I brought it up before. Magic is a big part of the DC universe. So it's like, now that they've introduced it, because I brought it up, they've always, like, Arrow started off very grounded. Not like, introducing magic is necessarily a bad thing, because it's like, why shy away from that side of your, this massive universe? It exists for a reason, so why shy away from it? But it's like very interesting because it started off so grounded, and then you took in certain aspects, more, I guess the whole Slade situation was a little more science fictional, I guess, and now the Lazarus Pit introduced magic to a small degree, but then just like Dark blew it open, like, yep, magic is real. So it'd be interesting to see where that goes. I mean, especially in regards to, because of the way the CW's DC universe, the televised DC universe is expanding on the CW. It's like, especially when you have like, the Flash, you have DC's Legends of Tomorrow, and you have having, Supergirl making its premiere. It's like, how much effect would those other shows have on Arrow? Like, a lot of, what's going on in those worlds are going to affect, obviously what's happening in this one. I mean, it's like, I don't necessarily know if Supergirl necessarily will, because that is a different Earth than this one. This is all Earth 1, and Supergirl is, as I said, possibly Earth 4. So it's like, how would they affect each other? I don't know. It's like, it will be sick to see crossovers. Like, it's just the thought of it just like blows my mind. It's just like, the thing could get Green Arrow, the Flash, everyone on Legends of Tomorrow, and just Supergirl, or just even just Flash, Arrow, and Supergirl. That'd just be amazing. Granted, it'd be like, how would Oliver compare against, like, people with superpowers? That'd be kind of like, he's like the oddball out, It's just like, oh, you got this guy who's super fast, and you have this girl who's also fast, but has the power, like, superhuman strength and can fly. So it'd be kind of interesting. Like I said, with the whole Earth 4 thing, it's like, how how will you handle crossovers in that regard? I don't know. And it's also like, if he ever did some team ups with Legends of Tomorrow, it's like, how would that go? Like, would we ever see a point where he ends up going back into the past? Maybe that'd be connected to some of his flashbacks or something like that. Maybe that's just me overthinking it, but maybe he ends up in a situation where he has to kind of confront his past a little bit more because they're going to the past or something like that. Because there was supposed to be a point, I think I brought this up before, that I thought there was supposed to be a point in season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow where they met young Barry. So I feel like obviously we got older future Oliver, which that's never been brought up to Oliver's attention. I mean, obviously, like, Sarah and them have kept that. I mean, because Sarah hasn't had contact with Oliver since, because when she came out back to 2016, the only person she talked to is Detective. I mean, Captain Lance. I still refer to him as Detective. It's a hard habit to shake. But it'd be kind of interesting to see where we go in those regards. Something that did come to my mind is like, it'd be kind of cool if we got to see this series introduce the character Artemis. Now, like, something I never, it's something I had to look up because I didn't know. Artemis is a character that existed specifically in Young Justice. Actually, in the comic books, Artemis is actually a villain. But for Young Justice, they turned her into like a Green Arrow hero. Like, she kind of was like his protege. So it's like, in the back of my mind, I've always thought like, oh, that'd be like, before I knew about Artemis not actually being, this was only like maybe a couple months ago I learned this stuff because I was randomly Googling it. And it's like, oh, Artemis isn't like an actual like good guy. She isn't like a Green Arrow or something like that. So what would have been cool though, is in my mind, I was like, because she's blonde, I was like, what if Felicity got trained by Oliver and ended up started shooting bows? I said O's, shooting bows, and she ended up becoming Artemis. That'd be cool. I mean, it'd be kind of nice if they like tied that in, because that is something specific. I'd like to see like the return of that character in some regards, in some other thing other than just Young Justice. But I guess it's really just a question I'm posing to you. What are some other like villains or heroes that that you're familiar with that you might like to see in season 5? It's because like I'm not that well versed in a lot of Green Arrow's villains, but obviously the DC, they share a lot of villains. So because like I said, for instance, Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul, however you want to pronounce it, I knew him first as a Batman villain before I knew him as an Arrow villain. Like, I remember him like in like the 90s Batman cartoon, like Batman going up against him. So and that's an example of like, oh, they share villains. So it'd be kind of like, what villains or what other heroes would you like to see? I mean, it'd be kind of neat if we got to see maybe a little bit more Vixen or whatever. Like I said, Mr. Terrific. And someone else had pointed out the fact is that they would like, oh yeah, let's bring Roy back. It's like, well, Thea has kind of stepped away from, being Speedy. So it's like, we could technically get Arsenal back, I guess. And, that, it's like, maybe it doesn't have to be a permanent thing, but, let's see him kind of pop back every once in a while or something. Well, in the regard, well, it's kind of hard to, if, everyone thinking he's the Green Arrow and that he's dead. So it's kind of hard to like be around permanently. So. And something, it kind of came up in its, something I kind of just like was randomly thinking about is like, the fact is Argus ended up having an idol, right? So how did Hive/Dark get their hands on it? And it's like, if Argus has weapons, something like that, obviously we've seen a lot of the stuff they've had stashed away with this whole, like, this chip that was basically connected to all the missiles around the world. So it's like, we have all that. So it's like, in that regard, it's like, what else do they have hidden in a way that's going to, eventually come back to bite everyone in the ass? Like this whole idol thing. Because it's like, I don't think that was ever brought up. It's like, we see that they had it at the end. So it's like, how did Dark get his hands on it? So that'd be kind of interesting to find out about that. But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.